Low Targar friends. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for another Orc Mode workout. Today was Max Effort Bench Press Day. Remember the rules. For those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. Help keep the likes higher than the dislikes. I don't know why I only ask that in these training clips. These are the only videos that get likes since I ask. You guys could go down and click like on all the other stuff too. For the same reason, that would be greatly appreciated also. But over to the training. We did, I believe, 57 pounds of chains. 57, I believe. Yep, I think that's what it is. I'll have to recount it later. And did close grip, went back to the style of benching that seems to have been working best for me, which is close grip, about an inch off the smooth, flat-footed, decent arch. Worked pretty well. So the strength is slowly coming back. My bench seemed to have regressed. And a lot of it had to do, I feel like, with the supplemental work I was doing, try to mess with different grips. We went back to what I was doing in December. And I got the best results here. Same thing, looking at the supplemental lifts that are going to give me the best carryover. And that's going to be floor presses and dips. And anything else I do needs to complement those. And the strength is coming back. This wasn't amazing, but it was decent. And I was surprised because the 285 against the chains actually felt easy. This was hard at the lockout. So the hardest part, it was a little hard to lock. And I realized another weight bump I possibly miss. So we're back off to a good start. The strength is slowly coming back. But as you guys know, my bench is my worst lift by far. That's why over half of my training is dedicated to benching right now. And benching accessories. You know, like I said, we still care about the squat and deadlift. We need them to go up, but the bench needs to come up a lot more. My bench is literally 60 pounds behind my squat and my deadlift in terms of being equal strength. Floor presses were tough today. I decided to use the fractional plates, right? I'm doing this nice close grip, the legs straight. And I actually had the topic come up of someone say, hey, you know, another power lifter, he said, Jason, I feel like we can't arch as much with the leg straight versus feet on the floor, and I feel like it's not as safe. And I tested it, and I really can't arch anymore with one versus the other. Just me personally, I tested it out. So I thought I would throw that in. But it makes it hard, and it forces me to not be able to cheat. Like I had it in the fifth set short. I only got 8 reps because I knew I couldn't get another rep. And the lockout's the hardest for me. And that's the interesting thing. It's always easy off the bottom, even on the floor press for me. It's that lockout that's hard, which is one reason I'm doing the JM presses on the floor. Because if I can keep that lockout strength on point, I'll be able to progress on these. And if I can progress on these, my benching goes up proportionately. There's always a direct correlation between my floor press and my bench, at least when I'm a close grip bencher. This is easier to recover from, potentially a better muscle builder. So this is what we use, right? Use these strict floor presses. So what do I have on the bar? For people who can't see the little fractional plate, 232.5, right? Because I've got a 5 and then I got a 1 1/4 on there, next to the 2 plates. So 5 by 10, well I got 4 and I got to the last set, and even with fairly long breaks, that last set I just didn't have it. So the little weight bump kind of pushed me to my limits. It pushed me to limit sets for sure, just the fractional plates. So that means the next workout or two I'm probably going to have to keep working with this. I don't feel like I can increase this yet, and that's okay. Again, it's going to be slow and steady. All right, I got to build a lot of muscle in the right places on my upper body in order to get my bench up, and that's just the reality of it. My pecs and my triceps are going to have to come up a lot. And hopefully it's not too loud out there. I'm actually in my soundproof room. I have turned one of my 2 walk-in closets into a sound room, but sometimes it gets so loud outside that it still comes through. I can hear noise out there through my thing, unfortunately. But I think we're okay. But we're going to stay consistent with this. We know this is what works. We can't flip-flop. Just going to be consistent. I know I'm better close grip. I need to quit trying to mess with the wide grip. Save my shoulders. It's just not worth it. I don't care what the data shows. I'll keep doing all this work for my pecs. And hey, maybe one day if my pecs build up enough, I will be better at wide grip. But right now, I'm weaker. So all of these supplemental lifts, though, or at least my 2 main ones, are geared towards pectoral first, tricep second. All right, we need to build the chest top to bottom. And that can't just be the upper chest. It's got to be the lower chest, too. None of this incline stuff. That's come up before, too. People are like, well, you know, the incline should carry over. Well, it doesn't for me. I kept PRing on my 10 rep sets on the incline and my bench would go down. Same thing. Overhead press, PR, PR, PR. Even volume work, PR. Bench goes down. There's a direct correlation between my floor press rep work and my max bench. Okay, those, that's where we see it. So the floor press got to be the primary movement. Has to be. And I may drop down and do some lower reps with it later, but I need to run some long blocks of 10. So I could always drop down and mess with the 5x5, but I'll still need higher rep stuff for my pecs. I'll still have to keep the dips and things in higher. But this gives me a lot of tools to work with. Right? I have floor press, I have dips, I have JM press. I have variations of all of these I can do. Floor press, I've got 3 different bars. I've also got chains if I need them. Now, I don't know if chains are going to be ideal for me because the lockout sometimes feels like it's my weak point. I don't want to take tension off the bottom. I do accommodating resistance for all the max benching already. That would be a last resort. I would rather just rotate bars as necessary, but we're going to run this bar out. And we get to a point where we can't progress on it or it starts to have some overuse of 2 other bars. Same thing today, we did the dips against a minivan. I did 11 on the first one, then managed to get 10 on the next 2. The first set here, though, I feel like I wasn't locking well enough, so I started focusing more and more on locking out. Because, again, locking can be my hard part on benching. Part of it's the way I'm built. So I've got to get better at that. It just feels like sometimes it's hard to get into that lock position. Especially against the bands, especially sometimes on dips. So the later sets, I started focusing on it more. I could only get 10, though. And I might not have achieved full lockout on every rep, but I tried. But again, against the bands, that's where the challenge is, because I'm having to do it against bands. Now, the interesting thing, see, those are I'm locking. The interesting thing, though, is that I feel the bands more in my chest. Even though I'm doing more or less a tricep type dip, I'm keeping my elbows tucked. I'm closer in. Now, people say, can't you get further up? No, my chest hits the thing. That's as far up as I can go on my bars. But I'm in further on the bar, so it's a narrower grip, keeping the elbows tucked. So it is more tricep dominant. But I feel it in my chest, particularly with the bands, particularly when I use the bands, which is interesting because you would think you would feel them in the triceps more. And I guess it's the eccentric, because it's speeding me up on the way down, it creates a deeper stretch reflex out of the bottom. But my pecs light up, like I feel them big time. So that's good. That's what we want. We need these 2 lifts to hammer my pecs and my triceps. Got to maximize both. Especially the dip is better for hitting the whole tricep. You know, the floor press, we could argue the long head doesn't really get worked. It's just a medial and lateral, but that's fine because those are what I need to bench press with. Tricep is a better overall developer, the dip is. Just, again, if doing it as a primary exercise, it can beat your shoulders up. You need to be fatigued when you get to it. You can do a little less workload. But we know it works the entire chest. Medium top, bottom, all of it lights up very well in any EMG. And again, some biomechanics should confirm why that is. Hits all 3 heads of the tricep better than most presses. So it works. Works really well. And again, we have options. We have the bands. I feel like the bands really bring the most to the table right now in terms of being easier on your shoulders. I can always do chains. I can always do plates. The reason, though, I don't want to always do plates is when I do them heavy, because you guys have seen me do a 5x10 with 55 a few times, it does feel like it starts to really fatigue my shoulders. And it's the position it puts you in the deep stretch with it there. It can be harder on the shoulder joint. It feels like with accommodating resistance, it's easier. We got to pay attention to shoulder health. So that's why I'm doing it for now, but I'll rotate through them as needed. And we did the JM presses. Again, now that I've got the form down, I went ahead and went up to 95. This is challenging. Like, it's hard with 95 to do these correctly. Getting sets of 12 was tough. It was challenging. Maybe didn't feel as deep as I did last time with a little bit lighter weight. It was just surprising, 20 pounds heavier, but I was also doing a little bit more reps. I didn't quite feel as much of that deep burn, but I still felt it working. Particularly the medial head, which is, again, kind of something that's lagging for me on the bench in general. So, again, this is here mainly to bring up the tricep in a way that helps the bench and also is a main supplemental lift for the floor press, because I can always lock these JM presses clean and hold it at the top. So I get a complete lockout. I'm working the heads most associated with the floor press and the bench. Okay, that's what I want with a multi-joint movement, right? This will help train me to lock out harder on those floor presses, which will let me use more weight. Also help me lock out harder against those chain and band benches, which again are going to be key to building my bench. And people forget, even though they think, well, it's less weight at the bottom, is it really going to build even your max bench? Well, number one, it lets us rotate through movement, so we avoid overuse. We also avoid accommodation. But yes, there's the eccentric component. You're getting used to heavier weight on the way down. Like you feel that chain and band pulling you all the way down when you're using weights starting from the lockout that are heavier than your max. It creates a unique eccentric loading effect. And when you pull the bands and chains off, it just feels lighter in general on the way down. It builds confidence when you go to raw weight later. That's what I did on my squatting, right? That's one reason I got my squats up to where I did, and even with the box squats and other stuff. It builds that confidence on the eccentric. And it teaches you to say, oh, this weight is light, you know. This is nothing on the eccentric now. So it's valuable for that. So again, it's all around the system being used here. It is about the training system. And like I said, in this case, I wouldn't necessarily say these are necessarily the best tricep builder. There are other movements that might build all three heads of the tricep slightly more. Right? We know that. But these are building in a way that's specific to my most important building exercise for my bench. And I want to make sure that that weak link is gone. So this lets me take another hypertrophy movement that will have direct carryover. Because again, the floor press always feels heavy for me at the lockout. I feel like I'm limited by the lockout. Like when I get to 1 rep in reserve, I struggle to get the last 6 inches of the rep. And I know that if I didn't struggle with that last 6 inches of the rep, I'd be able to get yet another rep after that. And it is the tricep limiting that. So I need to make sure I bring that up so that my overall strength across the board will improve on that lift. And my bench will go up accordingly because we will have built the muscles. So it is, guys. It's about the pecs and triceps now. You know, and I'll get all my delt work off of the face pulls and everything else. But all that delt training didn't do a lot for my bench. We're going to do the stuff that we know works. And just have to live with that. You know, it may not be the funnest, may not be the most sexy. It may not even give me the best physique. But, you know, it will get my bench up. You know, and as far as physique stuff goes, I can always cut again later. I'm not that worried. Now, well, I will point out there, though, the loose skin may not ever go away, and that's just a reality. You know, people can say what they want about that. Like, oh, you'd look better if you're cut. Well, would I? Or would the loose skin still all be there? All right, that's from 100 pounds, guys. I had a 46-inch waist when I was sick and disabled and in bed. And I just have to accept that fact, and it is what it is. Nothing I can really do about it. I even had someone say, well, couldn't you get surgery? I'm like, you want me to dish out $20,000 for surgery and not be able to train for 10 to 12 weeks? Like, the training is what I do. This is my thing. Like, I would have to take months off from the very thing that I do that I'm passionate about, that gives me meaning and purpose and joy, and what this whole channel is about. So not only is it ludicrously expensive for something cosmetic that has no use, it would actually reduce my quality of life. So I don't really understand it when people bring that up. It's like, I know people personally who've had those reduction surgeries. Like, your training is done for a long time. Right? You're done. You can't do anything. You have to lay around and let it heal. And for someone like me with my appetite and everything, me just laying around and not being able to train and let it heal, I just get really fat. Right? I'd be up to 300 pounds in no time. So that's terrible advice. But then we did the face pulls. We did face pulls to failure using this band. And this is a good band. I feel like as long as I pause and squeeze at the top, it's going to take me a long time before I need more than this band. And if I do, I can always loop a pair of the reds together again. They're slightly the next tension up over this. So that's what I'll do. But for now, these are working. It's a good prehab exercise. Works a side delt, rear delt, all of that. It'll help keep my shoulders healthy in addition to the shoulder work I do every morning. And that's also come up. People are like, wow, you don't, from that position, it's only that backward angle and overhead, I don't have the mobility. I have great mobility when I'm under a squat bar because it's a downward position in my shoulders. That I'm good. People are like, can't you do something to fix this? Guys, I do mobility work first thing in the morning for my shoulders every single day. Every single day. Do you see it improving? So what does that tell you about mobility work? I do it just to keep my shoulders healthy because I figure if I have those mobility issues due to my structure and everything, I need to do it just for shoulder health. But because I've been doing it for months and I haven't ever seen any improvement, I'm going to assume it doesn't do anything for range of motion. And this is stuff physical therapists prescribe. I've researched it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.